All right, guys, I've been trying to do this intro. It's impossible to do it in 2 minutes, but I'm going to try. My name is Lucas. This is the podcast. I haven't been on here in a little while, and that is because I've really been trying to figure out what I want to do with this channel. Now, luckily, I have great people around me, people with ideas. I went to Michael this week. I said, Michael, can we talk? I'm excited to have a podcast with you. And he said, why don't we do the Vertellers and Vertalers together? Vertellers and Vertalers is a reading guide to the New Testament my father created, and I think it's very unique. I'm going to share my screen, and it doesn't matter if you're listening, I'll link it down below. Have a look. This is what I discussed in the last podcast as well, as you can see, this one. You don't need to watch that fully now. Doesn't, it's not very important. I'm just explaining to you what's going to be happening on this channel in the coming weeks and months and how you can participate. So, we're going to be focusing on a very New Testament. This is what we're going to be doing together and in a group. A very New Testament. It's a way to read the New Testament as an exciting story of the people who wrote it in the first century. They were fishermen, Pharisees, and refugees, and they had to interpret and translate the message of Jesus in the turmoil of the first century. Follow them on their journey and start discovering the New Testament in a whole new way. So, what is this? Let me click on it. So, this is a really good overview of what you can expect. I should have clicked this one before. I've been trying this for a couple of times. This is a good overview. Basically, the first time we come together, we'll be reading The Way of Yeshu, which is a chapter. These are the 12 chapters, and we'll be discussing it. That's only about 30 minutes of reading time. Then, the second episode we'll be doing together is called The Shadow of Caligula. Then we're going to read 1 and 2 Thessalonians. It's a bit more reading time. It's about an hour, but you can cut that in half if you read quick. Um, as you can see with the context of the story, from 30s to 2nd century CE, I prefer 80, but who cares? It's chronological. It takes into account the social historical context. You're not just reading the Bible books in a chronological fashion, which I think is very unique, and I really think it has tremendous value. I know I'm over the 2 minute mark, by the way. It's okay. We're doing well. You're also going to be reading the context around it. So, for example, let me just jump to chapter number 5. When we're going to be reading chapter number 5, of course, we're going to be reading the Bible books, but look at all this context that gets surrounded with it. Where does this context come from? Well, my father, he's a theologian. He got his PhD on the Gospel of Philip and Gnostic text, and he's an expert on historical Jesus. He knows this stuff off the top of his head. He'll give you, this image of what it could have looked like. He'll explain the context around, for example, Corinthians. Um, he'll give you the context about sexual immorality of that time, what the community dealt with, and then he'll give you conversation questions. It's just I really, oh man, I'm really excited, especially after you'll see the conversation that follows. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I think I've explained it. Okay. Uh, I'm really excited to dig into this with other people, to read through this together. For what end? To what end are we doing this? Well, if we are Christians, some of us are Christians that are going to be participating in this, it's going to be to get to know Jesus better, to try to follow him better. And I think you can do that when you fully grasp the narrative. You can't fully grasp it. When you grasp it better, you will grasp the person of Jesus better. You'll be able to follow him better. For non-Christians, this is fascinating stuff into the historical context of the time, 2,000 years ago. If you don't believe in the resurrection of Jesus or that he was God, that's okay. It doesn't take away from the tremendous value that this can give you um, as one of the most important characters in history. I think it's really valuable to get to know him in this way. Now, what I like as we spoke through this, at about the end of the episode, it's not really a spoiler because I think this is very important information. We were riffing on the idea that we could do this in a live stream format, let's say once every 2 weeks, for example. And if you want to participate, you can read the Bible books that you just saw in the overview. You can read the chapter on the website. It's all accessible, all free. You can find Bible books anywhere on the internet, guys, and you can participate all for free. And hopefully it can enrich your life. So we could open up then the live stream to other people that are interested. I don't want to overdo it. We don't want a group of like 15 people on the same podcast, but I think it's a really good way to enhance community on this channel, to enhance really participation, not just through leaving comments or to watch passively. But yeah, this is an open invitation. So what's the squad looking like? Well, Michael asked me if I can invite my brother, Aron. A lot of you guys know Aron. He's a great added value on this channel. My father, he's not going to be part of the main conversation every week. He says he prefers to distance himself a little bit because he created this reading guide, and it would be, a bit weird to read it with the author present, let's say. And that's not the author of the Bible, it's the author of these little chapters. And I think that's a good idea. So me, Michael, Aron, we're gonna try to make it every time, but of course we have, honeymoons and trips and other obligations that perhaps are going to impede us from attending every time, but that's why we're opening it up as well. So yeah, invitation to participate. How am I gonna basically schedule it? How are you gonna expect when to do it? We're still figuring this out a little bit, but what I'm thinking is that we'll do the first episode after this one, the introduction, just me, Michael, and Aron. And then at the end of the episode, I will, you know, tell you when the next one's going to be, how you can participate in it, what you have to do in terms of, reading. And then I think once it's a regular thing, once we find our flow in it, it's going to be awesome. I know this is way over 2 minutes, but I think this time I did a pretty good job of explaining it. I'm super excited about it. I'm really excited about it. And that's why I want to do it justice with this introduction. Lastly, we discussed, we could incorporate different types of conversation styles or types of reading styles when we have these conversations. For example, we could do practices like the Lectio Divina practice. If you don't know what that is, I can't explain it now. You can look up Lectio Divina, or if you want to see a Lectio Divina practice on my channel, you can look up Lectio Divina, Lucas Vaz. We could also incorporate the estuary protocol, a protocol popularized by Paul van der Klei. If you want to know what that is, look up estuary, Paul van der Klei. It's amazing stuff. I have an estuary group in person every month, and I love it. It's a way to have really meaningful conversation with people in a more structured way. That is, you know, it affords great conversation, and that's what I want to have on this channel. So that's it. I'm excited about it. What's gonna follow now, what you can be excited about now, is me, Boss, Aron, and Michael kind of figuring out what we're doing here, getting to know each other, and discussing the potential of this, asking perhaps my father some questions, why he does this, what he thinks of certain things in the modern context relating to the Christian story and the reading guide he created. And it was just a really awesome conversation. I'm not going to rehash all of it. You guys can enjoy this, but just so it's clear, the first episode of this series is going to be the next one. I still think this is a wonderful conversation to listen to, and it was a wonderful to participate in. Thank you guys. Have a nice rest of your Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, we can
Yeah,
we
go
can
ahead.
totally discuss the format of how we want to do it, but I was just reading through the different chapters on Boss's website, and he
Yeah.
has, guided questions for each book and kind of like a imagistic way of like entering into each text. And so I was thinking of doing something with that. I don't know, maybe doing some type of Lectio Divina where
Yeah.
maybe we
Mm.
read through, like if we start with Thessalonians, I think that's the first one. If we read through, I don't know, a couple chapters and then we kind of agree on a consensus of like a shorter segment to read and then maybe do I know the two of you I think are familiar with philosophical fellowship. Maybe
Mm.
we could do something like that. Um, I don't know.
That's
I
awesome.
was reading actually my friend's who I invited, he had a Substack yesterday and he included the quote, when three or more are gathered in my name, there I am. And I was like, I just feel I just feel like we should have at least three to to do the I just there's that header picture on your website, boss, of like five or six whatever people gathered around drinking tea, talking with each other. And I was like, I just
Yeah,
felt like it would do it justice to have at least one more person. Now we have
Yeah,
two.
it would. It would. Yeah.
fantastic.
Well, we've tested it with a few church groups.
Mm,
But in the questions, there are three different groups that of the three different sets of questions per chapter. And the questions are not mandatory in any way. They're just meant to inspire to have a discussion. I think you can very much do an estuary format if you want to. But it makes sense to look at the questions before you make your pitch as to what you would like to discuss, because the first set of questions is basically what would you discuss with anybody interested who is not necessarily Christian or of any particular heritage. And then the second set of questions is very much geared towards Christians who want to share and who want to pray together, etc. And then the third one for theologians is actually for theologians that may have something to conquer before they embark on this journey, because they have been trained to do it quite differently. Yeah, this is a more inductive, integrating thing, whereas science has been more like almost an analytical way and almost splitting up every letter in different things that people
Mm,
would study. And would it be from that era? Would it be later? And they put so many questions of the mind before it. And this is a narrative approach that really
mm,
wants to bring you back to those early followers, whilst full well knowing that we cannot do that exactly. So it's more an approximation, and therefore it uses imagination to sort of make up for what we don't know.
mm.
And theologians might have a problem with that. So I added a third set of questions to really sort of help them to let go of some of the preconceived notions that you have after your study of theology. And that's also why the first chapter actually isn't about Thessalonians, but about the oral tradition.
mhm,
And I think we're getting back into an oral time that people are more listening and watching images than reading large passages.
Mm.
So it is actually quite relevant to go back to that oral tradition and let go for a while of everything you thought you already knew, and just sit with it, experience it, see what it does to you, see what an oral tradition actually would mean today, perhaps. And so that's also a way to first unlearn before you. It's what people do with this deconstruction stuff, which is mostly about propositions. I would also want to do in the way that we approach the material. Deconstruct that for a while. Just let it go and just see what it does with you if you put yourself in that position first and become part of the story.
Good, good, wonderful. Okay. Any responses to that thus far, or is
Yeah,
everything?
I was
Yeah,
also thinking like I listened to I think this was an unheard podcast, but like people are also very concerned about people that like that let's say people are no longer reading any books
yeah.
and that we're perhaps headed into a new kind of dark ages because like there's a growing percentage of the population. But at the same time, I totally agree because reading also has all these let's say propositional knowledge type disadvantages. So I'm also very interested
mhm.
in sort of yeah, kind of elaborating this format into more oral type reading exercises. So yeah, I'm definitely down. I also like the idea of Lectio Divina. I have to say, like the weird thing about philosophical fellowship for me as a preparation is that I honestly, and that was because I started practicing that with let's say definitely people who did not have a Christian background, is I did
Mm,
it in the way that John Vervaeke sort of instructs, which is you follow the text of a sage, meaning that indeed I've done it for I don't know Confucius and Plato, but then also Simone Weil and like all these people. That it was kind of strange for me to pick a biblical text which is ironic because that's obviously where the tradition comes from. And that I noticed that I also found that I struggled a little bit during our Lectio Divina on the Paul text with Lucas and my dad. That I don't know, like because it seems so related to so many other things that sort of what you want to do is you want to have the text that sort of at least that's what I really like about Lectio Divina, that the text really completely speaks for itself. And there's this sense of you like don't worry about what you don't know yet. Like don't worry about not knowing the background of the author. Just what can you receive the words as if they're a gift to you, as if you're witnessing, let's say, a birth happening in front of your eyes. But I found that actually quite difficult with the biblical text because there's all these references to all these things.
Mm,
And
hmm
so yeah, I'm kind of curious, perhaps Lucas and Bas, how you reflect on that and also how you think about then using that format on this one. Obviously, Lectio Divina is possible, but I'm just curious what your view is on this. And also, Michael, if you have any responses.
Bas, you can start.
Yeah. Well, some of the texts are simply too large for Lectio Divina approach. Huh? So you cannot do the Gospel of Luke and the Book of Acts all in one go.
Yeah,
It's 5 hours. That overstretches somewhat the
I think so too.
human capacity for Lectio Divina. But especially what Michael was saying, I think Thessalonians, starting off with that, um, goes a little bit like that. But you could also just call it read. Put yourself in. I make some suggestions that you could say, for instance, take some personas to yourself. Like, for instance, imagine that you're Timothy or Paul or the people that are being addressed or Silas, and read with those ears. And you could even say, well, let's spread the roles a little bit. So you can do different things. Um, the whole thing is exactly as you said, it is to let go of what you already know
Yeah,
and to build up from the beginning. So we begin with the oral tradition, and then it's astounding how much is already there, by the way, because people said, well, Paul invented it, or it's Pauline, Johannine, what we have now is Christianity. No, well, let go of that. Just go with the Aramaic words and the few traditions that are clearly from the Aramaic context, and let it go for a while and see what it does to you. And I think you'll be astounded as to how much is there. But because there's so little, you should allow yourself to not understand it fully
yeah,
because
yeah,
you
yeah,
don't adduce all that other stuff yet.
Yeah.
Because if you adduce the other stuff, you are losing sight of the enveloping story of the first century of all the followers of
yeah. Oh yeah,
Jesus. You're already importing what happens in the 60s or how they thought about it in the 80s or in the 90s. So just let go of all that. Just
yeah,
stick with those little words and stories that I introduce, and let's see what happens. And then don't conclude more than you can. And then talk about what oral tradition does for you, and then go all the way that you want. I mean, you can talk about the stories in your family or the stories about your dad, Michael. I mean, that is
yeah,
all fair game
yeah,
because we're exploring the world of oral tradition when someone has died and he's now dead for a few years, and how do you remember him, and he had such an impact on you? Or you could say we're what's in the little corner, we're still processing the fact that Jordan Peterson is no longer with us. Well, he is, but not in the same way that he was when he did those Genesis lectures. And
Yeah.
people are processing that. You can really see that happening. Well, he
yeah.
changed my life, yeah, but I'm not longer there.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm also thinking I was um reminded of your talk during the Breakwater Festival in Leusden when you were talking you were reflecting on your own experience with Psalm 42, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um and then you asked also like as a sort of a warming up question, you asked the people there, so what is a soul? And then I remember Job, I probably wouldn't mind me saying this, but he was like substantial form of a living body. And you were like, where did you get that from? Yeah, just from Aquinas. It's just so funny. And it's just like it was just this definition of a soul from this medieval philosopher. Whereas obviously what you were then going to do, like, okay, yes, so get rid all of that, what happened afterwards and how we think about soul, also due to Plato and due all this philosophers and just stay with the psalm and just see what we can find there. And I think,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that that's a
Hmm.
good insight also to do that with the text, that you're not like, yeah, wow, that this is already a prediction that this will come true, etc. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's definitely a hazard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Does
Yeah.
Well,
that
For
appeal to you, Michael?
just what was that?
Does that appeal to you? Because you are the
Yeah.
one who
No.
came
Very,
with the initiative.
very, very much so. Yeah. I think I really love the the kind of participatory uh sense of it, that like we're including ourselves in the reading. We're really, putting ourselves there perspectively, or not ourselves, imagining ourselves as another character, like you said. um yeah, for me, like the most powerful experience I've had in a Bible study was we were at the end of the Gospel of John, and I just imagined what it was like for the disciples after Jesus has ascended into heaven and has given them, basically this instruction manual of
mm,
carry um how to carry forth what it means to follow him, and just like imagining how terrified they must have been, and how confused, and how alone they must have been, and like yet like unbelievably courageous
Hmm.
um in the face of that, and just like fully like inhabiting that perspective. It you know I often, when I'm in Bible studies, try and intellectualize so much, but those are the moments that actually, where you let the text kind of dwell in you,
yeah,
um is kind of the point I see it as.
yeah.
Mm, wonderful. Yeah. Well, there are two things, huh? I fully respect what we call the hermeneutic tradition, that we also have a story of how texts are interpreted and become effective later in their existence. So that is completely accepted, and that's valuable in its own right, and that gives this multi-layered system of meaning, and to which we still are adding our own layer. Huh? So that's beautiful. And you, for instance, you've got theologians going to India to read with a group of women in a certain social class and see what they come up with reading that stuff. So that is beautiful as well. What this is doing is basically allowing yourself to read as the New Testament develops,
Hmm.
as the experience of these people develop. So it sort of is a mix between some historic psychological curiosity and some suspension of conclusions, allowing them to draw different conclusions over time. That's one of the most interesting things. I mean, most people now would take the Bible as sort of a collection that is to be interpreted by the Bible itself. So if we don't understand something, we will take
Hmm.
another text and then we'll explain it, which is nice, which is great. But remember that if you read it in the order that it came to be, or at least that the story that I give you shows it, then it is already interpreting something that went before, and it keeps on reinterpreting. And one of the best examples is, of course, when you expect the end of the world to come. That's a main theme, and it
Hmm.
doesn't come. So how do you interpret that? A lot of sects, doomsday cult sects, have dealt with this, and we know psychologically what happens to them. And some disappear, and others dig down and double down, and so that's a fascinating thing, and at several points in our history that we are looking at, this actually happened. They believed Jesus would be back soon, very soon, and then it didn't happen. And then a few years later, there was this excellent occasion. It was a good occasion for the Lord to return, but he didn't. And then Jerusalem was destroyed. So that would have been the time. And what then happens to the minds of these people when they have to reinterpret what they received and think through, okay, how do I deal with that today? So that's an exciting journey in itself.
Okay.
Lucas, you commented on a YouTube video once. You were like, "The world is always ending," and I love that.
Yeah, that's a Peugeot comment. He said that
Yeah.
once, I think. And I feel like it's true. I always come back to that when we discuss this. Aaron and I had it in an estuary as well. I think one of the first ones that I attended in Utrecht, where we spoke about the world and
Mm,
being optimistic or pessimistic or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
Like it's interesting. Like there's one individual in our group, right?
yeah,
African who is just we love him to death, probably. Like he's
yeah,
just amazing. But he is also very well aware of all the risks inherent in, let's say, our current societal condition, and he is afraid of what the future will bring. So that's why our conversation topic often lands on that. And at the same time, indeed, we do get to a similar conclusion. But you wanted to continue, Lucas. Please go ahead.
yeah. Well, the world is always ending in the sense that what really is. I mean, in a lot of different ages, no matter how stable they may seem, in hindsight, there's always elements of that and patterns you can recognize, and I think it comes down to the personal responsibility you take as well. Is how do you respond to the world ending? Um,
Hmm.
I mean, your world is always ending. Death is in a way an end, but then at the same time, a lot of people have gone through endings of the world. It's different than a heat death of the universe, but I think you know what I'm getting at. Um, just today, I mean, I was just texting my family. There's massive protests here, police cars being set on fire, and
Mm.
really some scary signs. Let's say, and we've discussed this with Estuary as well, that there's been violence in the air. Um,
Oh, I didn't even see this. You're just telling me
oh,
now. My,
you didn't. Okay, well,
I
I
didn't know
my
just
about this
goodness.
either.
You're not reading your text, Aron.
well,
Yeah.
so for
What the?
context, Michael, I live in The Hague, which is the political capital of the Netherlands. And this is where people come to protest. And today it got completely out of hand.
Well, it's even where the
Mm.
international court is, right? So like sometimes they say when someone has committed
Yes,
a worthy enough crime, they say like, well, you're going to The Hague in that sense. Like we're gonna. So
exactly. And this is where a lot of my friends work by chance. It's the football group I play with are like international court people. But
Yeah.
that's a fun coincidence. Anyway, these signs are here. They're here today. They were here very strongly in the last century, of course. And I think I really like the question of how do you deal with it. And I'm inspired so much by people from the last century that went through so much atrocity and kept their not just their heads up, but their absolute faith in the goodness of reality. Sometimes that's so hard to have, and I think this is the first time in my life that I'm confronted with a lot of people around me who are losing that faith, and I
hmm.
think that that's happened before, and I think you'll see that in the story as well. Um,
I like that you're saying that, Lucas, because as you know, I take two through lines through the development of the New Testament. One is the expectation of the kingdom and what do you do when it doesn't, when Jesus doesn't come. That's one,
yeah,
the end of the, and the other one is the teaching of Jesus, the way of Jesus, the way, the attitude of Jesus, how he was in this world and how he imparts his feeling of God as a father, of a Abba, to his friends, which is healing, which is strengthening, which is comforting, and which gives them tremendous endurance in the face of all that's going on in that first century, because there's a lot of stuff going on in that first century in terms of violence and migration and what have you.
Hmm.
It's almost like we're telling the story of our age. Huh? And those two elements, the end of the world that's always ending, and the way to be in this world and how to do that in a loving way, with God as your father, or people find that a difficult word, as your mother, to help you inside out, and to have the strength to be this simple human being in this world that's always ending. Those through lines, I think the sort of the engine, the rotators that drive the story of the New Testament.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So it's worthwhile to, I guess, also try to read it from that perspective. I think that's because like it's interesting because I do remember when I read Vertellers and Vertalers. So what's the English translation? Is fishermen and translators? What was it again?
Followers of Jesus.
Followers of
You're not
Jesus.
paying attention, man.
Sorry.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I'm just so used to the
Yeah,
what do you
of
call
course,
it?
of course.
To
I think you
the
should keep branding it as such a little bit as well.
Dutch original, and like it has
I
good.
put Vitalis and Vitalis in the copyright notice at the
Yeah,
bottom.
it's
Yeah,
cool. You could have like V. I was thinking of a V and V. Anyway, you
yeah,
can
yeah, yeah.
go
It's
ahead.
it's just a lovely alliteration, you know, like and so
Yeah, it works in Dutch. It doesn't work in English.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Anyways, what was I gonna say? Yeah, I the reason why I found it so intriguing is that so in the story you sort of lay out, the story you tell, uh, like it obviously builds up to this apocalypse or to the return of the Messiah that doesn't take place. So, you know, I also find it a very worthwhile challenge to really read it through their eyes, sort of, let's say, and through their experience, without thinking like, yeah, but we know that, this doesn't matter Caligula, like, it didn't happen anyway. So it's like, so to really get back into that mindset, that whole experience, I find that really good and useful. But I also say like it is a challenge. So that's I think yeah, I was reminded of that. So during our Lectio Divina of the text by St. Paul, that I was struggling with that because I know, for instance, how much you know about it, Bas, and then Lucas and I know fairly little about it, and then sort of, so it's also then the challenge to sort of, okay, how can we um, because we're so used to it, like as having being raised by you, but also grown up with you, let's say that we ask you questions about, let's say, any biblical knowledge. So it's actually also the challenge for us, for me and Lucas, and then maybe for Michael, to kind of be like, okay, yeah, we're not gonna ask you, the expert, for, let's say, the answer to this question, even though you might know it, you probably do have a good answer to the question, because it might stand in the way of letting the text speak for itself. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But I'm curious how
Yes.
how you look at that.
I so much agree. You remember that Lucas was doing that in that session we had together, and I said, no, I'm not your teacher. I'm not going to answer it.
Yeah.
And I think what I would like you to consider as an option, I mean, it's Michael's initiative, is that we would have sort of an introductory chat like we have right now, and we
Yeah.
could do this a little bit about this oral tradition at the end, and then you guys take 2 weeks to read stuff, and then you have your conversation without me being present about that chapter.
Hmm.
And then we could do another 20 minutes introductory chat or 30 minutes, and then go slow. I mean, we are in no hurry, but it would help you to enjoy your reading because we sort of warm each other up a little bit in that half hour. And it would make you independent because you have your meeting without me to really discuss anything you feel comes up, and you don't have to feel like, well, I don't like this and I can't say it because he's there. No, you can say it, there's no problem. I mean, you can feel completely free.
Hmm.
Mm.
Is that a thing that, well, you can always decide later, but it's something that I would offer as a suggestion and see what you want to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like at least if you sorry, I'm very impulsive and talking all the time. I just wanted to
No,
quickly
it's
say,
good.
yeah.
Keep it up.
No, I really like the idea of having, let's say, indeed these separate segments where sometimes we do want to ask you for your vast knowledge on this subject matter, and at other moments it's like, well, then we should not, like so I really like that differentiation. And I was also thinking that I know that Gert-Jan and Florian also want to do this, let's say, uh in real life, in meet space. um so that's also something to keep in mind. And I just sort of that we should think about how this intersects with that, if it overlaps, if we should want to plan that sort of accordingly, or if it should just go separate.
It's a different thing I'm developing. What
Yeah.
Michael came up with is basically what I developed originally,
Okay.
is go slow, read it
Yeah.
together, etc.
Yeah.
What I'm offering this estuary group, or perhaps people from the estuary or other related spaces, is a simple course I'm trying to develop called the New Testament in a Day. But it will always have a theme. And one of the themes could be, how do you learn to form a community based on love, not judging each other. And then we follow the examples of Paul and Peter and James, the brother of Jesus, and they're fighting over it. And they're failing and it doesn't work, and then they have to rephrase, etc. So it's a very good sort of workshop format that we can take people through and say, okay, what kind of leadership style would fit with you? How would you approach this? Okay, let's take a look. How are they approaching it? What role do you see? Okay, you take your own life as an example about trying to live out of love, but in the meantime, still judging each other and being quite convinced of how things should be run. So that's a very good one. Another one would be when we get to these household codes, the equality of man and woman, slave and master, Jew and Gentile. Then you've got this beautiful letter of Philemon. Paul always calls him Philemon or something. Philemon, I think he calls him. Um, and and this is about a runaway slave. So how would Paul, so we could take the worship, how would Paul protect this runaway slave that he loves? The name is Onesimus. But he still wants to live within the Roman context and apply the laws of the Roman Empire. So how can he do that? How can he be Christian in a set of rules that is definitely unchristian? Another one would be gospel writing. How would you go about writing a gospel? How would you tell the story of Jesus? What is important to you? How would you change wordings, etc.? So we can make a workshop like in a day setting that you apply this way of reading, this go with the original readers, but we make it a workshop. So it's quite different from what we are doing, or at least what Michael proposed to do in this setting.
Yeah, I see. Okay.
That's good. So no conflicts.
No
between the two.
conflicts.
Conflicts of interest. Yeah.
Conflicts of interest.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so what does that mean for the rest of today? Because we still have some time left. Bas, do you have a proposal? What we
Yeah,
could
should I
do?
just briefly introduce you to just check whether or not you can move around the website, and then tell you a little bit about the oral tradition phase. Is that
Yeah,
okay?
I could give you, you could share your screen maybe and open up the website on your end. Is that an idea? Let me see if I can do that. Try to share screen and then see if it allows you.
Okay.
Because
Let me
maybe I
just
can give
see.
you.
Yeah. I always have to find where the share screen is.
So if you go down and you have a green button that says share.
Oh ja, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Delen is niet ingeschakeld. Sharing is not enabled. So
Sorry,
you
guys,
would
I had
still
a
have
new
to.
computer. Oh, okay, there we go. Yeah. Okay, now you're allowed.
Sorry about that. Okay. Are you seeing something?
Nope.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, so I first do this now, and I'm gonna do this one and share.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There we
Yeah,
go.
there we go.
No incriminating things on your
I put all the
no
pictures,
no Pirate Bay.
all the pictures from the last 10 years. I took them away. You only see here pictures from people who have already died. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
In
So you're
fact, these
you're
are,
desecrating the dead, is what you're saying.
yeah, these are
These
very
poor
dear
people were
pictures.
mummified and they wanted to remain mummified and buried.
Yeah, this. Lucas loves this, of course. These are Fayum portraits from the
Yeah,
Oasis.
I wrote an essay about this. It's amazing stuff.
It's a mix of the mummy tradition with Roman realistic painting. And we do believe it may also, this tradition may also have ended up in the way that icons are being painted, because look at their eyes.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's not the same thing, though. I mean, these people are presented here, whereas an icon should present you before God. But anyway, that's a theological thing. Anyway, what you see in this website is that there's a homepage which you can see here with Lucas's podcast at the time, and there are three products: a very New Testament. That's what we've been discussing today. The Calling of God, which is still it's it's a deep L translation of the Dutch, so I'm still going through it and improving some of the texts. I'm sorry about that. That same goes for a very New Testament, but that's the gospel in the first person perspective of Jesus and in the present tense. That was my attempt at participatory engagement with that text. And then there's the Apostles' Creed, which is a more modern, looking today at the old words and what did they mean then, what can they mean today. So that's all there. People can use that at their leisure. They don't have to agree. It's just my personal take on things. But we are here at the very New Testament. And as you see there, if you click on the title, you will get the home page, and otherwise you can click on any of the chapters that follow. So you see 12 chapters and an epilogue, and that is basically the story. Okay, the way of Yeshu, Yeshu being Jesus, but then in Aramaic, in the shadow of Caligula, and then we get to the letters to the Thessalonians, we get to the Gospel of Mark, and then we get to this entire set of letters between Paul and the brothers of Jesus, James and Jude, about how to form a community, whether or not Jewish law is important enough to separate, for instance, tables, etc. And then we go into that exciting phase, but also sad phase when both Peter and Paul and James are all executed for their faith. They're martyred. And then we get the age of writing the other Gospels, Matthew, Luke, John, and of course also the Apocalypse. So there's quite a bit to discover there. And in the epilogue, I sort of discuss how the written New Testament is then becomes a collection. And then you can find the discussion questions here and some background material like Palestine, Jesus' days, chronology, Caesars, stuff like that. Okay? Now, what you're interested now is the discussion questions and the chapters. I'll just briefly click on the discussion chapters here. And as you can see, someone's discussing here. Every chapter has questions for discussion groups, which are not particularly related to your worldview. So you can have that discussion with anybody from any religious background, but it is of course about the New Testament. Then perhaps for Christians who also want to pray together and share together, there's a set of questions that you could try. And there are questions for theologians, and those are more geared towards, okay, sometimes I take odd positions, not the majority of scholars or what have you. And then these questions perhaps can help the discussion there, whether or not that makes sense. And if you want to engage in that discussion, then you can use these questions. So when you've read the chapter, you could look whether or not any of these questions is appealing to you and whether or not you want to use them in your discussion group. But I'm out of that, and it's up to you what you do with it. Clear enough?
Clear enough.
Yeah?
Sure.
So then I click on the main header
Mm-hmm.
of a very New Testament, and you'll get the introduction. And the introduction basically shows you the 12 chapters with the context of the story. As you see, we are moving through time, going from the 30s CE to the 2nd century. The Bible books that are being introduced, and that is a suggestion, the listening time. If you take a spoken Bible and you put it on your headphone or your earplugs, this is about the time that you would do it at my speed. My speed would be normal speed. Of course, if you are Aron, you can halve these times. Yeah?
Yeah, that's good.
So, but that's basically, so you can see there's a different workload for all of these chapters because sometimes we have to introduce a lot of letters, as you can see here in chapter 5, or a lot of the gospel material, as you can see here. But most of the time, it's quite doable. You should be
Mm.
able to do this at your leisure. And that's
Yeah.
surprising because most people think reading the New Testament is a big task. But
No,
it's,
the Bible is big, so the New
Yeah,
Testament
but
is
it's
big
also
too.
some people object to reading the New Testament without the proper context of the Old Testament, which I know you have and know, but other people are concerned about those who don't.
yeah. So
Yeah.
what you get here in the New Testament is that I will show you where things come from the Old Testament a little bit, not too much. I think I will add to the website at one point stuff about the Torah or the Psalms in the days of David, or some of the prophets. But that's a later project. For now, it's enough to sort of follow this, and then when you want to deepen it, of course, you get into a lot of more biblical background. And remember, that's not just the Old Testament that we know as Protestants, huh? And there are a lot more books from that period that are relevant, like the
Hmm.
Book of Enoch or
Hmm.
some of the books that the Catholics include in the Old Testament.
Oh,
Um, so there's more to be discovered. But that's for later.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, sorry, go ahead,
oh,
Michael.
go ahead. I was just going to ask a quick question. In kind of how you develop this with the discussion questions and like it, being designed for groups. Do you envision that people, if there's multiple books in one chapter, that they read both of those books before they have a discussion, or would it make sense to break them up? Um, is kind of just up to the discretion of each
Yeah, it's
group.
up to their discretion. But when I made the Dutch website, the ones that have more than 2.5 hours, I actually did break up. I have not done this for the English website, but I did do this. Yeah. So if you like, there are ways to do that. I haven't put it in right now. Also because I think actually it's quite okay if you are not the one who read everything. But if, say, the group comes together and some of them have read more and some of them have read less, that's not a huge problem. And on the other hand, it's not too much either because apart from this one here, Luke and
Luke.
Acts, that's five
Uh,
hours. But at
Yeah.
that point, you could say, I'm just going to listen to the book of Acts because that's the new stuff. You could do that. That's up to
Yeah.
you. Or perhaps the first chapter of Luke, because it's a Christmas story and
Yeah.
it's different from Matthew's Christmas story, um, and then the book of Acts.
Yeah.
And Lucas has got his own book memorized by now, I imagine.
He
So
should.
of
He should
we
course.
have.
don't, yeah,
Of
we don't
course.
even need to read
Word by
that one.
word, just in Hebrew, dog.
Verbatim.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm doing. Nah, it looks
Yeah.
good. It looks good.
Yeah.
I think also what we could do is say we do come together, three of us, four of us. Um, we could have a I don't know, group chat, something of the like, where maybe someone has a proposal like, oh, maybe this week or this turn we could do Lectio Divina on this, or we take a different format. I like this idea that we're flexible within it, um,
Mhm.
to get the most out of the text and to do the appropriate thing, let's say.
I do a bit of estuary there.
Also
Pitch
possible.
what you want. Pitch what you want, and then see. Okay, I would pitch a Lectio Divina on this. I would like to do that, and then mix it a little bit, and then you'll have a nice conversation.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Or we could even, because I'm conscious of the chapter titles,
Yeah.
boss, and kind of how you're framing like thematically each book. So like maybe our reading can be from the frame of um
Mhm.
that theme, or maybe we could even do like a dialectic into dialogos. We could pick like a virtue or something
Oh,
that is tied to that theme and then explore it that way.
Yeah, I think you are equipped to do it after. So we do this introductory chat if you guys agree, then you have 2 weeks to read and listen. And you are so talented, all of you, to just come up with what you feel is wonderful to do as a group. And I'm not there, so I'll be the first then to click on it when it airs to see what you guys made of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you're also still welcome anytime. It's not like we're
No. I
it's not
think it's
like we're
wise
bothered.
to split it up.
All right.
I think
Sometimes
it's
God
wise.
leaves and sometimes God comes back. That's the mystery of the Father.
Scary stuff, my man. Scary stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we'll go to the first chapter. So here you are, the way of Yeshu. Shall we go there? Is that all
Yeah.
right with you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
By
Okay.
the way, like just as one thing, because I do want to pressure Bas a little bit. I told him that he should pitch this to the makers of The Chosen. Doesn't matter what you think of The Chosen, if you like it or not, or if you've seen it or if you haven't seen it. But since it's such a popular show, I think some of this could make for like sort of really fascinating, inspiration for okay, what was going on with the people after, let's say, Jesus passed away. Because I know they want to pick up the show from The Chosen, let's say
I
in
think they've already engaged their writers to
well,
do
it's
that.
in 2028, like that's when they start. They definitely have time,
Oh, you,
you
you
know.
know so much more than I do.
Yeah, so
And
so
I fear a little bit that they will take the Book of Acts as their format and
well
then tell the story from there.
they will, but then again, you haven't seen the show, and the show takes a lot of what do you call it, artistic license with the
Okay.
scripture, like
Well,
a lot.
spread the podcast as wide as you can, and then
Yeah.
see if someone picks it up. I'm quite excited about the story that envelops. I'm very
Exactly.
bad at selling myself. I'm scared as hell to do what you suggest. But let's just
Flip.
go step by step and see if you guys think it's worthwhile after you've done it, and then you talk again.
Yeah. That's probably wise.
And the great thing is, you will get to the Book of Acts, and I think you will respect Luke, not this one, but the other one. Uh,
Thanks, Doug.
you will respect Luke so much for what he is doing in the 80s when he's writing his gospel and the Book of Acts, so much more than when you just take him as a historian of the age, disinterested, and
Yeah.
not having a problem to solve himself, because he's got a huge problem to solve, which we will get to when you get to that chapter. And that influences how he writes. And once you see that, you get a feel of what the difference would be if you try to imagine Paul's life from his letters or Paul's life from the Book of Acts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that part of it. I'm really inspired by it because, man, I'm so used to reading New Testament in a specific way, I guess.
Mm.
And I do feel like it can become disenchanted a bit. It can become, well, you kind of forget that you're sort of reading history and reading sort of the greatest story of all time,
hmm.
in my opinion. I forget about that all the time. It just becomes this thing. It's like, oh yeah, it's a New
Yeah.
Testament. It's
Take
just
it
such
for
a given.
you
It
take it
becomes
for
such a
granted.
given.
Yeah.
Yeah,
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 and that's why I think reading it chronologically is I think your intuition is spot on, boss, to invoke that sense of awe because it's these people who are in real time, like being confronted by this phenomenon that has never existed before, and like they're kind of forced to abandon all logic because logic can't reason on this level. Um, I was curious why the New Testament isn't compiled chronologically
Mm.
and what the thought process was in ordering it the way that it is.
As you know, that's a question of later date. So it's in the epilogue. You will have to wait
Okay,
Oh,
like
we'll have to,
26 weeks
okay.
before you're there.
okay. I see how this is going. If you buy
So,
my
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
you buy
yeah.
my master class.
You could get Bas Plus ad free.
Nah, you say you're not good at selling yourself, but I think you did a pretty good marketing job there.
Yeah, that was good.
No, but it's going to be fun, and it's even more fun when you first appreciate each letter for what it's actually doing, and then
Those
you
moments
start
are
to
good.
understand why certain letters are collected separate from the others,
Yeah,
and why the Gospels are collected is a different story, which all takes place in the second century, and not in the Constantine era, as some people would have it, because most of what is the New Testament is clear pretty much around 200.
yeah.
So there are a few rough edges at that time, discussions still between the churches, but pretty much of it is clear by 200.
All
So
right,
that's going to be fun to look at that process.
cool.
Yeah.
Are you still showing the website, or are you done with the
Yeah,
screen
I'm
share?
sorry. Yeah, of course.
You
I
just
see your faces, but you only see this stupid page from a website. Okay, let's finish this a little bit, and then we'll go back to your faces, and I'm just showing the page from the website, and I'll talk through it, but without sharing my screen. Okay.
yeah,
So what you see here in the way of Yeshua, we're not introducing any biblical books yet. So this is an easy first chapter. But what we do is try to recreate the sense of Jesus has died. You are one of his Palestinian, Israeli, Palestinian, difficult area now. Sorry, Jews in Palestine. Let's put it
Jewish
like
is
this. So
easier.
you're one of the Jews in Palestine that follow Jesus. Most of your discussions are in Aramaic. You're still exposed to Hebrew. You're exposed to Greek a lot, and a little bit to Latin. But that's sort of your linguistic surroundings. Most of his followers were based in the Galilee, but a large group stayed in Jerusalem where they were breaking bread together, so they were remembering him. Yeah.
Yeah,
And what I've done is I've taken some of the Aramaic words like Maranatha and Rabbi, and you see the texts where I take them from, and I've put them in little stories. Still improving the English a little bit, but these are just little stories. Um, and then you can go through each of them and think about them a little bit. And of course, if you want to, you can check out the biblical verses, but
yeah,
it's more important that you sort of detach yourself a little bit. And of course, the word Abba, as I explained at the start, is one of the key words. I mean, it's so important for the early Christians that when Paul describes the Holy Spirit, he calls it the spirit of huiothetes, or sonship, or crying out Abba. And there comes this Aramaic word in Galatians and Romans. So it's so powerful that even when they start communicating in Greek, they keep this word. It's
yeah,
wonderful. Raka is often not in our translations anymore, so it's one of the fun things to do. Talita kum, of course, many of you can recognize that. So some stories, some miracles, and some traditions that scholars say this is both in Paul and in the Gospels. It's so strong, it has to go back. Flying colors, all historical criticism would confirm that this goes back to the historical Jesus. And then you have that's it. So I'm gonna stop sharing the screen because
cool.
oh yeah, well, a little bit of background. All the time that you talked about the Old Testament, the background information gets you a little bit of Old Testament stuff. And then you can go to the discussion questions or to the next chapter, and you can leave a comment, which would be very nice. The only person who has left a comment so far is Lucas.
Forgot I did this.
And he
As on
identified
top,
as
Sorry,
the
I
yeah.
Son
didn't
of
know this was
Man.
gonna be public.
So yeah, this is what
I
happens
thought you
when
would
you.
just get an email.
Okay, good. Okay, I'm going to stop this one here. So there we
How'd you
are.
know it was me? I didn't even put my name there.
It wasn't the
Uh,
first day. You were the only one who knew that the website was live.
All right,
So,
cool. Yeah. Sensible.
um, yeah, so that's a little bit the Aramaic background. Any first reactions or any questions that you think are important for you before you start reading? or any contextualizations that you need?
I have curiosities like what made you do this? Why did you decide to make Vertellers Vertalers? Why did you think it wasn't a good idea to do it chronologically? And yeah, what
Well,
is the
that's outside of the course of the chapter, but let me just go back to when I was dating your mom.
Sounds like such a
What?
diss. I was dating your
Relax.
mom.
And we
Relax.
This is
saw
a
each other
long
every
story.
2 weeks. We saw each other
Anytime you
every
can have the
two
opportunity.
weeks.
Yeah.
And we had this little booklet that we sent. So she got my booklet and then I got etc. So you write things. Huh? We didn't have WhatsApp or something. And we would read together. And somehow I convinced her to read the book of Acts together with the letters of Paul
Read the
in
Book of Acts, girl.
together with the letters of Paul and then see what she thought about it and what I thought about it. So we did that. So I was 18 or something, and we started to do that. And ever since, I have been astounded at how much richness it gives to combine all these different sources.
Wow.
What I didn't know at the time, but I had to think about it, was that there were real conflicts between Galatians and the book of Acts, for instance. And people never talk about it. So you have all these websites about the Bible is incorrect because it states this here and it states that there. But nobody talks about the fact that in Galatians, Paul is the apostle to the Gentiles, but in Acts, it's Peter. Peter is the apostle to the Gentiles.
Ah.
Nobody talks about these differences. And then you start to think about, okay, so we're in a rhetorical situation where certain choices of words are important to make your point. And then you start to really engage with the material. And I've done that over the years. So that was, yeah, that's for me, they are alive, these guys. I talk to them. I like them. I don't take Paul's perspective that the men of James are rubbish and that they should cut their own. I don't know if I can say this on screen.
You
Let's
can.
say circumcision. I can.
Yeah,
Okay,
say whatever you
so
want.
they're talking about circumcision, that Jews need to be circumcised, and Paul is so angry that he says they better cut themselves, and he means more than just circumcision. So
Oh,
angry in Galatians. And that of course becomes better when we go further down the road, and in the book of Acts, everything is restored to harmony. So it's a wonderful story that you go through. So why did I do that? Yeah, every time that I engage people about certain texts, I found out that nobody knew this stuff. So they were reading Galatians as if it were written at the same time as Romans or at the same time as
Mm.
Acts, and this whole richness, nobody knew it. And it's sad to say,
Yeah.
but there are not very many books out there that tell this story.
So if I could speak to this a little bit, like I think the difficulty is that some people, if you historically contextualize it or culturally contextualize it, then for some people that will mean that they then think, oh, but then the messages in it are not universal and I can't take anything from it, which is incorrect. But I think that's really the problem for most people, that they just want to read it, all of it, like just, okay, what does this have to tell me? How can this inform my life? And that as soon
Yes.
as they learn, well, this is for this very specific community, and then it's like, oh, well, then perhaps there's not really anything in here for me.
so why is it
Mm.
incorrect?
Why is that
Yeah,
will be incorrect?
yeah.
Well, perhaps I'll let Bas answer
Hmm.
this question. I think that's
Well, I
interesting.
would say they would like to read it as the Quran.
Hmm.
Meaning,
The Quran is the word of
Mm.
God that descended from heaven and was revealed on earth.
uh
In Islam, the Quran has almost the position that Jesus has. The Quran is the Logos. In Christianity, Jesus
Mhm.
is the Logos.
Mm.
Jesus descended from heaven. Jesus revealed himself. And what happens with what we call Holy Scriptures is that a process takes place in which the human element, the author, under guidance of the Holy Spirit, now you know in your own life how clear that guidance is. It's seldom that the Holy Spirit inspires you to write exact words and sentences. If I may be a little bit mocking here, it's not my intention to mock, but when I started to go to a number of Pentecostal gatherings, which I very much liked, I liked the speaking in tongues and the prophecies, etc. But what I found was that these prophecies were often old-fashioned Dutch, like the Bible translations, Dutch,
Yeah.
and that the grammar was particularly poor.
Yeah.
So people were not used to speak Old Dutch, so the grammar was not very good. So I thought, does the Holy Spirit speak Old Dutch in poor grammar? Or does the Holy Spirit inspire people to see something and they try to, with the best of their ability, to give words to it?
Yeah.
And I think Paul is writing something that the prophets were trying to figure out what the Holy Spirit was guiding them to say. So that process is a more interactive, cooperative process between spirit and humanity. And I think that's exactly the gospel. The gospel is God became human. Jesus became flesh. The Logos is incarnated. So it's incarnated in all our human restrictions.
You
In the
know,
Quran, Jesus speaks fully formed from as a baby,
yeah.
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 just to
Well,
inform us that he's a slave of Allah.
can
But
I
in
can
the
I ask
Bible,
you
not.
something about
Yeah,
that?
yeah, go ahead.
Because I'm I often have these questions in my mind. It's like, okay, what is the reality of then the humanity of Jesus? Was he um so if you would have encountered Jesus at a younger age, for example, would he make mistakes? Would he, do the things that we do? Or was he without sin from the very start? Like what would
Well,
it
this
look like as far as you
this is where I would be a heretic, Lucas.
do it?
Yeah? Okay, good.
Yeah.
So Jesus radicalized our understanding of the word sin. Before Jesus, sin was an impurity that needed to be atoned for, washed off, etc., before you could engage with God again in the temple or what have you. So sin is very much sin could be touching a corpse. It's the difference between haram and halal in Islam. It's the difference between kosher and impurity in Judaism. And we are post Jesus. So what Jesus did, he sort of, when you read the Sermon of the Mount, which is a collection that the Gospel of Matthew gives us, one of the weird things of it is that it's impossible what's written there. It says, "Be perfect like your Father in heaven." No human being can be perfect like your Father in heaven. It's impossible. So the teaching of Jesus somehow says all of us, and now I'm very much a Protestant Calvinist, all of us are sinners, and all of us are called to be holy as our Father in heaven is holy. And there is no way that we can make a difference between someone who has actually divorced his wife and someone who has only had a fight with her. So there's no way of looking down. It doesn't mean that the Bible or the New Testament says now you can divorce, and Jesus wasn't particularly fond of divorce. But it means that there is no way to look down on each other. And I think that after Jesus, we understand that sin is also recognizing the ease with which we are tempted. So, for instance, Jesus says, if you just look at a woman with desire in your heart, how different are you from someone who has uh, actually committed adultery? And so, post Jesus, just the impulse is something that could create distance between you and God.
Yeah.
And we acknowledge that now as sin, but I think it's Jesus who takes on all the sins of all the people and becomes as sinful as we are because he redefines sin.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Wow, I never
I,
thought about it like that. Go ahead.
I was also thinking, well, I have a couple things that came to mind. The last one relates to what you just said, which is this discussion recently between the conversation between Jonathan Peugeot and John Vervaeke and Paul van der Klei about AI and the large language models. And then at some point, John Vake was like, well, we shouldn't use them. And I mean, I think there's something to be
You're a
said for that.
fundamentalist.
Yeah, exactly. And then Paul's like, "Oh, you're kind of a fundamentalist," which is kind of interesting. But then Pajot said, and it's I think like it reminds me a little bit of what you just said. It's like, well, it's just that I don't want people to think like it's not that that the LLMs aren't demonic. It's just that I don't want people to think that they're not engaging in all these demonic activities all the time already, and that they would be when they would start doing that, you know. And I think that's kind of what it seems like you're getting at, like oh, you don't want to violate the law, so you want to stay pure and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
tell yourself that you
As
never,
if.
etc. So that was one thing that came to mind. And the other thing that came to mind was actually, sorry if you just shared it, but I thought, yeah, I was reminded of Jesus saying at some point, no one can be a prophet in his own country. And they also
Mm.
they contextualize that in the Chosen series, where it's like where he's not really being taken seriously in his home sorry in his hometown, I should say, because
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, because you all know me, and
Yeah.
you made fun of me, and like, so obviously for you guys I'm just this guy who's now trying to be like, well, I'm the Messiah, and all of you can't take that seriously because you've played games with me, etc. So to your question, Lucas, I also imagine that he at this younger age, like that all the people who knew him then were like, what? That guy, the Messiah?
Yeah.
Like, who
Wow.
does
Yeah.
he think he is,
That's so
Like
interesting.
just in
Yeah. I mean,
Thanks for that
not
insight.
least of which his parents, right? Like the story of him like wandering off when he was 12, right?
yeah.
And his mom can't find him and she's like you can just imagine her being like, "Come here, Jesus. Like what are you doing in the temple,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
studying with the with the rabbis like silly boy." Um yeah, it's
yeah, I see, you're right.
it's interesting. I'm curious also how because this came up recently in a discussion I had with a family member who's very devoutly Catholic or sorry, Christian. And she was talking about, like Paul talking about like, marriage should be between a man and a wife and like like the unyoked relationship between a Christian and a non-Christian is like, not what Jesus has in mind for us. And she was like, if I ever get the call that you've fallen in love with a non-Christian, like that's not a call that I want to get. And I was like, wow. Um,
Yeah.
and I wonder how like you said a little bit ago how like the words of the Bible were written for a particular audience and how like if people see something that's written in the Bible that is that sounds kind of like prescription, um, and they happen to not agree with that or that doesn't align with their values, um, is that is that like what you said earlier with that creates a distance from God if
Hmm.
if you're a believer but you are gay or lesbian or you marry someone who's not Christian, um, is that
Hmm.
is that sin if you go about that love in a way that honors Jesus, but it happened like I don't know, in my mind, the more superficial plane of like who it's with is not, I don't know. It's something I'm wrestling with as someone who's not a cradle Christian and
Yeah.
like coming
Yeah.
into the faith later and like I'm now confronted with what do I think about dating someone outside of the faith? Like I don't have a hard line view on that yet.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
it's good
great
that you don't
question,
have a
first of all. Thank
out
you, Michael.
hard that you don't have a strong view on that because I
Yeah.
think Lucas is going to make a confession now.
No, but I want to applaud you for this question because I think these are difficult questions and the questions to ask. And
Yeah.
yeah, I went through the same thing. For me,
Yeah.
I never really considered that stopping me from falling in love with someone.
Hmm.
Simply because I see the love of Christ as the universal love that fuels the world and it's the fundament of the world. Um, But I'm curious what you guys have to say about it. Buzz?
Well, rather than answering your question, this is an excellent question to ask again once we've done the chapter on Corinthians.
Hmm.
Hmm.
That is really the place to start asking these questions because then they are struggling with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything is allowed, but not everything builds up. Everything is allowed, but I will not let myself be made a servant or a slave of something bad. Um, and that whole discussion takes place, and then you've got James and Jude, the brothers of Jesus, arguing with Paul. So that's going to be a great discussion at that point in time.
Hmm.
But I'd like to put it a little, go one step back to make it a bit more philosophical, and then we can still talk a little bit about Jesus as well. There's this beautiful prayer of King Solomon on the dedication of the temple. I think it's in Chronicles, where he says, "On earth, nobody can do good without sinning." That's something to think about because your story about Jesus in the temple, he is sinning against his mom.
Hmm.
And he's doing good to be with his father in the temple, but he's human. He cannot be two
Yeah.
places at the same time. But he's hurting her feelings, and he doesn't want to hurt her. He wants to be obedient, etc. Maybe you can say, well, he was ignorant of it. Well, ignorant, Jesus, yeah, yeah, ignorant. Or then otherwise he would be sinning because he would be hurting his mom. Nobody can be a human being and do good
Hey.
without sinning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Because you can't know the relationship, or you can't know what good means without encountering its opposite,
Yeah,
right?
but also you're
And
you're you're just human.
yeah, part of part of all of us.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
imagine if you really want to do good by everyone you meet, to every standard. It's not possible. We are incarnated. We are in the flesh. We are limited. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to stay in communion with God and in communion with our brothers and sisters and to be open to extend that communion to everybody outside that circle. That's what we're trying to do.
Hmm.
And what we're sometimes doing is we're confusing that divine commandment, because I think that's the divine commandment. That's what the whole Gospel of John is about, that we love one another and learn that, with the eagerness to stay on the right side of this thin line that we've drawn between good and evil, whereas it's a huge gray area because as humans, we are um, condemned to be in the gray area
Yeah.
because of our limitedness.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's even more complicated in our time now because in the context of, when Paul was writing his letters, it's like he was addressing people of the same faith tradition
Mm.
who more or less had the same idea of what the good, the true, and the beautiful are. But now we're in this pluralistic society where to be to be good, to aspire to be good in the eyes of Jesus might be like, devilish in someone else's eyes.
Oh,
And
Michael, you're
so
going to so much love this because this area that Paul enters into, the Greeks and the Jews don't have the same idea about what's good at all.
right, right, yeah,
Yeah.
You're gonna recognize this time when you go into that first century.
yeah.
Man, this is exciting. I'm excited for this. Where Aaron is gone actually. Where's Aaron?
He's taking a phone call.
He
Oh,
got a
okay.
phone call.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah,
Because you have to go to a wedding soon, boss.
yeah, 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 yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
want to hold you up too
Oh,
long. I know it's coming up. Neighbor's wedding, I guess, in the rain. Well,
yeah,
the sun's shining here. What about, can you see? He's in the
yeah.
basement.
Here it's a little bit cloudy with some light up there, but not a direct view of the sun.
Nice. Well, I want to say first, Bus, I hadn't responded yet to, your answering of the question of why did you do this and the curiosity into that. And I just want to say thank you for doing this because it's a massive endeavor. I know just in the last couple of weeks, we first recorded our episode. I think our conversation wasn't even necessarily going to be about vertellers and vertalers, but it ended up being about it. I just wanted to talk about ethics or something. And kind of this gave you a push to publish the English version. Now this is happening. There's a little bit of fuel to the fire in your uh, endeavor with this, and I want to keep stoking it, if that's an English word. Stoka, future
Hmm.
Stoka.
Hmm.
Yeah, can I say it, Michael? Thank you.
Yep.
Um,
Stoke the
so
fire.
yeah, stoke the fire, and I'm really excited to do that with you guys. Aaron, I'd be happy to see you participate in it.
Yeah, I'll
And
try it. Yeah, if I
yeah,
can,
please,
I'd
that would
love
be
to.
awesome. And it doesn't have to be a
Hmm.
big time commitment. I mean, reading the Bible is good either way. And
Yeah.
then we can get together. We'll do the introduction in a bit. We can see if we can schedule that.
Yeah,
But I'm really encouraged by this
Yeah.
conversation, and I really want to say a word of appreciation for all of your different input. Um,
yeah,
gave me great encouragement and excitement for what's to come, and I think it's a good direction to take my channel into for some time because I'm
Mm.
really trying to focus on quality over quantity in terms of podcasts, and I really like this idea of doing a bit more of a series. So Michael and Buzz, I guess, thank you both for providing me the tools and the words to go do that. Um,
yeah.
yeah,
I agree.
let
I
me know
agree.
what you guys have to say as we end this.
Yeah, if it's okay if I start because I know Marnix will be here any
Yeah,
second.
sure.
Having a busy day today. Um, Yeah, I am also looking forward to this. I thought this was it was really nice because some of this was very practical and
Yeah.
also very introductory, just getting to know each other and sort of yeah, what is this about? But then I could also already like there were small hints already like, oh wow, this is so interesting. I want to talk about this. So I think that's just good. It felt like the perfect appetizer for more to come. Yeah, Michael, was really nice to meet you, sort of in this digital way. I'm really looking forward
Likewise.
to more. And also, even though yeah, I don't have a lot of time at the moment, and I'll also still be going on my
Honeymoon.
belated honeymoon in October and November. I nonetheless prefer these types of reading groups. Like it's sort of the best way to get me to sort of read in a more focused way, in a more intentional way that I'm just kind of like, yeah, but I want to read this because I want to have this good conversation and I want to be sort of prepared
Hmm.
for that. And I really so I'm all in favor of this project. And I might have to go soon, so if you see me leave,
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Well,
But
thanks,
Yeah.
Aaron. I think this suits you as well. I'm very happy you joined last minute. He only saw my message to him like 2 minutes before we started.
yeah.
Wow.
So,
Yeah, I
so,
had friends over
Oh, thank you.
today. Yeah, so
but
and then
that's
I saw your message, so then I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm just
Gotta
gonna
come.
start going now. And now that
Yeah.
now another friend is coming, it's sort of a busy social day for some.
hectic. But
But
thank you so much for answering the call. I really appreciate it. It's
uh,
No, me as well. Me as well.
yeah.
Yeah, I know both of you have to go, so I'll make it brief. But just to echo what all of you said, I'm really excited for this. I'm just really looking forward to like kind of really imagining how it was written in the stages that it was written. And instead of this kind of decontextualized reading, where a lot of my biblical reading is kind of very scattered, and
Same.
I'm really looking forward to that kind of progression with other people. Yeah, it's exactly how I want to read honestly anything. And Aaron, what you said about being motivated to read, to have the discussion, it's like the reading is just the scaffolding that allows for the discussion. So,
yeah,
and yeah, a huge debt of gratitude to you, boss, for taking this project on, and Aaron for joining. And yeah, I'm really excited.
Thanks, Michael. Okay, boss, close her off.
Well, almost. Michael, you were thinking of bringing in a friend.
Yeah, I unfortunately didn't hear from him before this, but he's also a pretty busy guy, so I'll see how his schedule lines up. But he's also someone who's a Christian and who's been involved very deeply with dialectic and dialogos. He's been a uh facilitator for that in a couple workshops that John Vervaeke's hosted, and he's very in the circling method as well. But yeah, also a Christian who, really kind of wants to have discussions like this. So I think he'd be a great interlocutor as well.
Wow.
It could also be interesting to ask Gabriel, by the way, Lucas, but
Man, I'm like my brain is going like, oh, we could include this person, we could do
yeah,
this.
I know.
I'm
Yeah.
even interested, but just as an aside, I don't want to speak too much about format, but we could even like if I upload these things quick and people are interested, hey, I want to join for chapter 2, I might have an insight on this. They can do the
Mm.
reading before that, they can watch the conversation, maybe they can hop on 2, and maybe they can skip 3. Maybe we can think about this, but let's do
Yeah,
that off
exactly.
Yeah.
Like
camera.
we'll also
Yeah,
have
we
to
can
see
tease
sort of the
that.
group size. Like if
Yeah,
the group size is too big, then we need sort of a moderator, I'd say. If
exactly.
it's too small,
Right.
so like there's all these things that that are relevant.
Or if it
But it's
gets too
exciting.
big, you could make multiple groups and we could just have this
Like breakout sessions.
Hydra form, and yeah.
Yeah.
Sick.
Spread across the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll share this.
No,
I'll see what people have to say.
Yeah.
Boss?
Disciples of
no, no.
Boss.
What I wanted to say, well, yeah, followers of Jesus, but there is something in between, and that's in this case, it's me. But I would like you to make it Paul or make it James or make it one of these authors, okay? What I wanted to say about this, I so much appreciate it if you can get 2 or 3 people from your side connected to this, because you'll have a core group. And if you have to be on a honeymoon, I mean, some people, I don't know why, but they want that, then that's not, it doesn't matter. And then you can put your comments below the video, and next time you'll be in. Or perhaps if you say, well, let's have a core group that we know that it continues, but we can also open up, say, who wants to share, and we have got 3 more places to
Yeah.
have that conversation.
For
Just like an
payment.
estuary thing that Paul is
Yeah.
doing on his Friday mornings.
Yeah, I was gonna use that as an example where he just has like, here's the link. Whoever clicks on it
Yeah.
first is in
Yeah,
my
we could.
group.
Yeah.
So I think what he usually does, and I think that would be perfect. Like he now sort of starts off this estuary with people who he's emailed before, like, okay, I want to do this group now. So he sort of switches between groups. And then at some point he throws it open for anyone to join. And that could also be interesting that we have this
Yeah.
StreamYard
We could live
session
stream, yeah.
where everyone who prepared, let's say, is there and we know of everyone who was involved. So we don't start off with someone who just hasn't prepared at all and, then probably can't follow the discussion. But then at some point you could say, okay, let's see if anyone wants to join. That's obviously maybe a little bit hubristic. Like I don't want to assume that people are so
We
interested that
have
everyone's going to
20
be
people
watching
lined up.
this. Exactly, they're waiting to join, but maybe
Boss van
some
Oost
are.
Plus.
If
We're
you,
gonna sell it.
well, I will not be in there. I will be only in this introductory thing.
You'll
But
just
if you
be
say you
making
have
money.
20 people watching this, then they might actually want to say something. So yeah, even if it's small, the technology is there to allow them to participate.
Yeah, and then
Amazing.
again,
Yeah.
you need to think about, for instance, Paul does require you to turn on your camera, for instance. So like, there's all these things that you need to think about for,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
which I
Okay,
think makes sense because you
we'll
don't want
we'll
this.
we'll talk about
We'll
practicalities
workshop.
more,
Yeah.
but
But
for now,
I
close
definitely
Thanks,
think we should
Michael.
have at least one group, just the 3
Yeah,
of us,
like a
to
core
kind of
group.
tease out
Yeah.
also like what it looks like.
Yeah, I'll make a WhatsApp thingy,
What the format will look like. But yeah.
Sounds
Good.
good.
Okay, guys, thank you so much. Enjoy the wedding, boss. Enjoy your weekend, Michael. I
Yes,
love that
enjoy.
you're
Thank you.
outside. Is this your garden?
It is.
Amazing.
Well, it's my landlord's, but yeah, there's a
No,
persimmon
this is
tree
awesome.
behind me.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful cloudless morning.
One day I'll come visit you, US. It's my dream. I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Well,
meet.
it's also my dream to come to the Netherlands.
We'll
So
make it work.
Oh, yeah, you're very
Good.
welcome.
my
Yeah.
mom's best friend from college, her son lives in Maastricht.
Ah, okay.
He went to college there and then he fell in love, and I think he's gonna stay there.
Cool.
It
Nice.
happens.
You have
It
Nice.
happens.
many places to stay here. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
whenever you want to come over.
Maastricht is almost like within the least nether part of the Netherlands. So yeah, just so you know, like there's actually some hills close to
It's
Maastricht.
beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
All right.
Have a good rest of your
Take
day.
care.
See you
Yes,
Cheers.
guys.
take care.
Cheers.